Water. Take my chains off. Okay. I just got back in my truck, just took my chains off. We're past the chain control area, and this week's video topic is going to be about winter weather and vehicle safety. So when I get home, we're going to have a little chat. All right, guys. One might think that after 9 times of recording, I would be done by now. But alas, no. After 9 attempts, I am still recording this same video. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. We are going to talk today about winter driving. Just to kind of catch you guys up to speed, because I did not post last week. Again, this is my 9th attempt at recording this video. So last Friday, I drove back from California, and unbeknownst to me, a snowstorm was moving in over the pass between California to Nevada. So Donner Pass ended up having chain control put on, which, if you're not familiar with what chain control means, it's popular in areas that receive, a lot of winter storms, and the roads get really snowy. But it means that you either have to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle or chains on your vehicle in order to proceed. I always carry chains in my truck. When I first moved out here, one of the things I was warned about was the winter weather and the fact that we frequently end up having the roads put under chain control. So the very first winter I was out here, I ended up getting stuck at work because I didn't have chains, and they shut down I-80 between work to Reno, and had chain control on. And for chain control, it's not something like, some people go on Amazon and they buy like a 4x4 sticker and they slap it on the back of their vehicle. I don't mess around with that. Like, if it's bad enough that I can't drive 5 miles an hour to get home, and the DOT is saying, no, you need chains, I'm not even gonna try. And so that day I was actually very thankful that I didn't. I caught a ride home with a friend of ours, and he dropped us off and everything was fine. But had I had chains, I would have been able to get home significantly earlier. So I bought chains. I've kept them in my truck ever since. I bought the auto track chains, the ones that tension on their own. It's a self-tensioning cable. And they saved my booty on Friday. So the whole purpose of this video is to kind of go over some winter weather preparation type stuff, because winter has arrived in Nevada. So the weather here around the Reno-Sparks area is chilly but decent. It is 33 degrees outside. I woke up and there was frost on my window, but there is no snow that's sticking. It's a very arid climate, and so when it snows, it sticks. Well, not always. I take that back. But as you get closer to the mountains, it snows significantly more. So I'm just gonna progress through some stuff. Hopefully this kind of gets your brain going. If you're someone who owns and operates your own motorized vehicle, then winter check. So I'm gonna preface all of this with driving as a responsibility and not a right. So be mindful of that every single time you get behind the wheel. Be in the right mindset, be in the right body set, both physically and mentally and emotionally, ready to drive, ready to focus on what you're doing, focusing on the road, and knowing what's going on. So knowing your vehicle, knowing the weather conditions, knowing the traffic conditions. All of these things are important factors that play into whether or not you're going to get to from point A to point B safely. Next up, so driving is a responsibility, and it's not only, a preparation responsibility, but it's also a financial responsibility. So if you own your own vehicle, and or, not, if you're someone that hitches a ride with someone else, if you're someone that carpools, be mindful that operating a vehicle is not cheap. So I pay close to $1,000 a year just for insurance on my truck. Registration is like $500. And those are just two things off the bat. That's not talking about regular gas. That's not talking about vehicle maintenance, wear and tear on your vehicle. Yeah, owning and operating a vehicle is not cheap. So if you're someone who carpools, smart, but be mindful of that. Be mindful of the fact that whoever you're carpooling with is absorbing a lot of expenses outside of just gas. And then if you're the person that's operating the vehicle, be mindful of the fact that maintenance isn't something you can skip. If you don't take the time to do maintenance, as someone who comes from a maintenance background, if you don't take the time to do maintenance, maintenance will make its time when it's inconvenient for you. So pre-plan your maintenance, do a health check on your vehicle, check your oil, check your transmission, check all of your fluid levels. The last thing you want to do is be stuck on the road with the salt spray kicking up on your windshield, and that's when you realize that you're out of windshield washer fluid. Same thing goes, you're stuck in a snowstorm or it's raining or like you've got your heater blowing and so the snow's melting as it hits your window, and then you realize there's a tear in your windshield wipers and it's like being super streaky and you're not getting a clean wipe and so you can't see. Tires, making sure your tire tread is good, making sure, do a brake check. Not the brake check where you slam on your brakes in the middle of the road, but like actually physically check your brake pads. You shouldn't, depending on your vehicle, you shouldn't have to take your tires off to do that. You might, but you should be able to get in there and get behind them and just shine a flashlight. But if you're taking your vehicle to get your tires done, say you need to swap your tires out, then you can just ask wherever you're taking your vehicle to also check your brakes for you. They may charge you, they may not. Yeah. General maintenance, now's a good time to do it. If you do maintenance on your own vehicle, the common reason why is because it's very inconvenient to have to work on a vehicle outside when it's cold. But if you're someone who takes your vehicle to a shop to get these types of things done, when that first snow really hits and sticks and winter, wherever you're from, announces itself like, I'm here, everyone else is going to be doing this stuff. So get ahead of the curve, get into a shop while you can, get your appointment scheduled. Once the general population realizes like, oh, it's time to prep for winter, it's going to be a pain to try and get an appointment. It's going to be a pain to try and get in. The example I'm going to use for this is I had my tires changed out. I bought new tires 3 weeks ago. I scheduled the appointment like 4.5. So even back in like October going into November, I had to schedule a week and a half out, not because they didn't have my tires. My original pick for tires was actually sold out. So with COVID and the supply and demand and the shortage of like manufacturing here, I could not get the Goodyear tires that I wanted. So my second choice was the Hankook, and I had to wait a week and a half just for the labor to be available. So be mindful of that. You might not get what you want if you wait until the last minute. And if you wait until the last minute, you might end up having to wait even longer, which could be bad if the weather's already bad and you need something. So, yeah, vehicle maintenance, get your vehicle into the shop, get it taken care of. General health checks for your car. The next thing that I want to cover is preparation internally. So Friday, if I would not have been able to make it over the pass, I would have been stuck in Tahoe National Forest with like a 3 to 4 hour drive to get to the closest hotel. I would not have driven to the closest hotel. I would have jumped into the bed of my truck, opened my truck box, pulled out my sleeping bag and the extra blankets that I have back there. I don't think I still have a pillow back there. I used to. And I would have just made a little cocoon in the cab of my truck, and I would have been golden. So my next little piece of advice here is if you drive your own vehicle, and it's good to have an emergency box in your trunk, where you keep supplies like granola bars, non-perishable foods, extra bottles of water, blankets. If you want to keep a pillow back there, keep a pillow back there. Extra gloves, extra hats, maybe an extra coat or a jacket. Supplies for if and when you end up in a less than ideal position, you're not going to freeze. You can take care of yourself, you can eat. I tend to keep snacks in the cab of my truck because I am also someone that, not from an emergency standpoint that needs food, but I get hangry while driving a lot, and it affects how I drive. So aggressive driving, speeding, things along those lines, I tend to scale it like 4 steps back if I have like a container of almonds next to me, and when I'm hungry, instead of racing home for dinner, I can like snack in my car. So those are some good things to have. I also keep a flashlight in my vehicle. Like when I went to put my chains on, I had my cell phone, but I also have a flashlight. It's just beneficial. It's helpful if you're stuck out at night. Also, living out in the middle of nowhere, I use it all the time. So it's one of those just in case items. So yeah, food, water, things to keep you warm, extra layers to bundle in. I also keep excessive amounts of coffee, like instant coffee in my truck, because you never know. But I also have a camp stove in my truck as well, and extra canisters of propane, which is probably not what the average person always carries, but there's that. I keep a tire pump in my truck, because you never know. I have a manual one. I know some of my friends have like the ones that you plug into your little 12-volt cigarette lighter in your vehicle. I just have a manual. It's a bike tire pump, because you never know. You never know if your electricity is going to end up cutting out on your vehicle and you need to like air your tires. Kind of going into a habit to keep not running your vehicle on empty throughout the winter months. Try like a policy that I try to go by is not going any lower than 1/4 of a tank through the winter time, because again, you never know. If I would have had really low gas and then I would have gotten stuck on the pass, I would not be able to run my vehicle to keep the heater on, without risking not having enough gas to get to the next gas station. So just kind of like, you never know. If someone ends up getting into an accident on 80 and then I have to detour around, but I only had enough gas to get home, then I could end up stuck on the road running out of gas and not able to make it home because I wasn't fully prepared for the extra 50 miles. Things like that. It's going to be different depending on what your commute looks like or where you drive. But just a little, like, not only does it help your engine health, not sucking up all the gas from the bottom of the tank, like this is just a good practice to have. But if you're someone that does like to drive your tank down to E, if you can break that for the winter, it's probably better. Just for the sheer fact that you're not stressed out, wondering when you're going to get to the next gas station. You're not wondering, when your next chance to fill up is. And you're not stressed out if you come across a detour that now just added 30 miles to your trip. So I think that about covers all the physical things that I wanted to talk about. The next category that I want to discuss is emotional, and then following the rules of the road. So from an emotional standpoint, this is pretty straightforward. Don't drive if you are not in the right mindset to do so, if you're emotionally compromised, or if you are uncomfortable, to avoid driving in those conditions as best as possible. Starting off with in the right ability, the right mindset, the right capacity to do so. So obviously, don't drive if you're inebriated in any shape or form, but also try to avoid driving when you're tired. I've done this more times than I can count, more times than I'm proud of. It is not a badge of honor to drive when you're tired because you made it home. Stop and call someone. Literally a month ago, my partner got into a car wreck because he tried driving home tired and he fell asleep driving like 55, 65 miles an hour and crashed his car into the side rail. Totaled his car. So yeah, and he's still waiting because like he had financing on it, and so the loan company owned the title, and he still hasn't gotten the title yet. So he still hasn't been paid, and he had to buy a new vehicle because he totaled his car. So he's stuck in kind of this financial limbo. Plus he had to go to court because he crashed into state property, like this huge mess that you just don't have to deal with. Don't risk it for the biscuit. Don't drive while you're tired. Now, this goes into point 3. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to get where you're going. And I'm not talking about driving while intoxicated. That shouldn't happen under any circumstance. Call an Uber. But I'm talking about when you're uncomfortable or not particularly in the best situation to drive. It's 2020, it's the end of 2020 at that. We all know what essential means. So if it's storming out or it's a whiteout out, don't drive to Wednesday poker night when you're not comfortable driving out in the snow. Like, be smart about the weather. Now, if you're out of milk and your baby needs formula, if you have to go to work, those are different circumstances, right? In those situations, the best you can do is just prepare. So leave early, like leave early. I'm talking like 30 to 45 minutes early, more so than like the general 15-minute rule. So that way you can drive slow. It is okay to take your time, throw your hazards on, take your time getting from point A to point B if it means you get there safely. Doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get there as long as you get there safely. What I will say though is when you do this, you need to follow the rules of the road. That means if you are driving 20 miles an hour under the speed limit, stay out of the left lane. I cannot say that enough. This is not just like a winter thing. This is an all year round thing. If you are driving the same speed as the person in the lane next to you to your right, you should not be in that lane. You need to move over to the right lane. This is predominantly for 4-lane highways, when you have 2 lanes of traffic going in either direction. Especially in winter weather, it becomes even more dangerous. It is statistically proven that driving 5 miles an hour under the speed limit is more dangerous and more likely to result in a wreck than driving 5 miles over the speed limit. Why? Because when someone is aggressively driving and they're speeding and they're weaving in and out of traffic, their biggest risk is them as an individual. They are driving erratically, they might lose control, and yes, they might take someone else out with them, but you're still looking at 1, 2, maybe 3 vehicles. Huge pileups are, the kind of the opposite, the outliers here, but you're looking at one person putting themselves at risk. Not saying that this is okay, especially when it's inclement weather and you could lose control very easily. But when you look at the person who's driving slow in the left lane and there are people trying to get around them, now that person's like trucking along in the left lane and you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 vehicles lined up in the left lane behind them. What do you think they're gonna do? They're all gonna try to get around. So they're gonna speed up. If it's inclement weather, they're gonna make the risky moves. They're gonna accelerate pretty hard to try to get around you. And each vehicle in itself is single-handedly going to make an aggressive movement to get around you. From one vehicle, you are now affecting 15. And with each vehicle that's making those aggressive moves, you're now looking at that multiplier for like, okay, now they're making aggressive drives. They are risking themselves as well as others that are around them. So you see how that works? You deciding that you're gonna cruise in the left lane when you should be in the right is impacting more people than just you. Now, if you're on a 2-lane road, one lane going one way, one lane going the other, this is a slightly different story because you don't have a lane to move over into. So in this case, the best thing you can do is drive slow. That's fine, throw your hazards on. But when available, when it's in the clear, if there's a line of traffic behind you, be courteous, slow down even more, and pull over onto the shoulder. You don't have to completely stop, but you can, and let the traffic pass you. You will be doing everyone a service by doing this because when it is safe to pass, they'll get around you and they will not have to accelerate as hard to get around you. Their passing time and their time in the lane of oncoming traffic is going to be decreased, and just all around, everyone's going to be happy. You're a courteous driver. They have a chance to get around you. Everyone's happy. This goes again to just boils down to being kind, because if you're that person that's blocking traffic, being kind and being courteous, allowing them to pass you. If you are someone who is behind someone who is going slow, they may not be comfortable driving on that weather and they have to get to work, and so they don't have a choice. But that being said, when you leave earlier, you're not feeling the same time constraints, you're not feeling as anxious, you're not feeling as pushed, and all of a sudden it feels a little bit more okay to drive 10 miles an hour under the speed limit to get to where you're going. And you're not rushing, you're not stressed out, you don't have those mental factors that could affect the way you're driving and your decision-making process, and all around everything's just a little bit better and a little bit safer. So wrapping this up, I'm right at the 20-minute mark. Over-encompassing, arching idea here is be prepared. Remember, driving is a responsibility, not a right. When you get behind the wheel, you are impacting not just yourself and you trying to get from point A to point B, but you are on the road sharing the highway with hundreds of people, tens of hundreds of people that you're gonna pass, depending on how long your commute is. And it is our responsibility to work together to keep everyone safe. So, in this upcoming winter, which I hear is going to be a pretty bad one, do what you can to be prepared to alleviate those stresses. Try to stay off the road if you're not feeling up to it. Carpool if you can. And then, of course, be kind. Be kind to others. Carry a little bit of compassion and show that to others while you're on the road. A little compassion goes a long way. So with that, I am going to wrap up take number 9. Have a great week, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye.